Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Wednesday, college football, basketball, baseball blitz. There's a lot to talk about. Rob Browne here with you for the next couple of hours on this version of our sports blitz, Southern College Sports Blitz. We're going to start batting in the leadoff position with Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Hogs done it again. 3 straight years, 3 years in a row, Sweet 16. They win, get to the Elite Eight. That's 3 years in a row. It's been a while. I think you got to go back, as Franz Beard reminded us, GatorBaitMedia.com, Florida, 11, 12, 13, 14, 4 straight Final Fours. That's amazing. But we'll also be joined in the second segment over to ESPN Coastal in Savannah with our man, the Gator, Ben Troop, talking about all things college football, basketball, NCAA tournament, whatever's. There's a lot to talk about. We don't kind of have a whatever you want to talk about. We got a serious menu every day, a lot of content. Hour number 2, Coach John Brady checks in with us. More talk about March Madness and talk about, again, that Ole Miss hire of Chris Beard and Yancy Porter. Rebel Yell Hotline will join us in the final segment to get his thoughts on spring practice at Ole Miss. Baseball, we all know Rebels, they weren't the only team that got swept. A lot of teams that went on the road got swept. Hell, just to make everybody feel better, Georgia got swept at home by South Carolina, who's 21-1 now and looking really good. But, man, follow us on Twitter. Please give us a follow. @sidelines_live. Starting to get into Twitter more and more. And you can go to our website and sync this show on your cell phone, your iPhone, Android, iPad, laptop, desktop. People that watch us on Google Smart TV, like Jay Evers down in Vestavia, watches it on the big color TV flat screen there at his house overlooking the mountain there in Birmingham. Thank you so much. And Dudley, holy cow, Razorbacks. I mean, I bet it has sunk into you, but just as a reminder to our listeners, to take 4 freshmen and get all those guys mixed in with the upperclassmen and all, and get them to come together as late in the season with, Nick Smith coming back is nothing short of amazing. I use as an example Kentucky, a loaded roster and more experience than a typical John Calipari team has. They've already been sent home. The Razorbacks refused to lose, seem to be finding excuses to win. It's a hell of a story. Now you got UConn coming up.
Yeah, and we were sitting here last week, and I was talking about the regular season, being underachieving. That they had not gotten to where they wanted to be. That he was having trouble, I think reaching them in some aspects, and then they go out this past week, get a couple of big wins, play really well in that second half on Sunday.
Yeah.
They 1 point in the second half, and then Devo Davis and the rest of them just wouldn't let Arkansas lose. You got to give Devo a lot of credit. He made a lot of fans with his post-game interview when he was crying just about how much it meant to him, and that's been a rocky deal for him this year. There are times, and I love the kid to death. There are times when he's the best player on both teams, from how he plays the game. But just have to give him a lot of credit, and certainly give Coach Musselman and his staff a lot of credit, because I don't think very many people had them getting to the Sweet 16 with the way they ended the season with those 3 losses in the regular season, and beating Auburn, but not the best SEC tournament.
Yeah, and Dudley, when Nick Smith came back with the Razorbacks were, 2-5 in those last 7 games. That's not an attack on him. That's just, part of it's your schedule was back end loaded. You have to go that last week on the road to Alabama and Tennessee, and then you come home and play a hot Kentucky team. And to be able to to pull it together that late in the season is hard, because you would have to agree, you don't have to, but that it's hard to change your identity of who you are, 29, 31 games into a season, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about the defense. We talk about them getting to the hoop in a more smart manner. Sometimes late in the season, they were just and getting fouled and all that. Certainly knocked down a few outside shots as well. And then free throws. Free throws are kind of cool. They were able to make their free throws, especially stretch, knock down. So many aspects of the ball they had not been flourishing. They were able to do well in the NCAA tournament. And, that's what he gets them to do. He's 8-2 in his NCAA tournament games. That's more wins than the previous coaches that had in the NCAA tournament. They had 2 over the course of the time from when Nolan Richardson was the coach until now.
Well, Dudley, let's try this. Try to reboot and get a better connection, and I'll just try that, because you're breaking up about every other word. But I think what you're saying, I agree with what you are onto. That the regular season Hogs were 8-10 in the SEC, but this was a year for sure where the SEC teams did beat each other up, and it's shown that to be the case with 3 teams in the Sweet 16. Big Ten has 1 left, Michigan State, and I think this is Tom Izzo's 15th trip to the Sweet 16. He is an amazing coach. I've always been a huge fan of his. I think that he just gets every bit of talent that any player on his roster has. It's a lot of fun to watch them play. Look in the ACC. It's not Carolina or NC State or Duke or Wake Forest, Pitt or Clemson, who both at one time were all, and late in the season were on top of the ACC. It's Miami and their coach Jim Larrañaga, and they use a heavy guard lineup, and they're good. This guy he's just a hell of a coach. And I don't think people, I don't think he gets the respect that he really deserves compared to some of these other coaches who have accomplished far less than him. But, Miami and the ACC, that's traditionally been the league for basketball. But now, Dudley, this year, I'd say the Big 12 was the best league. Now, in the Sweet 16, you got Kansas State and you got Texas. And the SEC's got 3 teams, more than anybody, with Tennessee, Arkansas, and Alabama. But going back to the Arkansas season at 8-10, and again, you pointed this out. Typically, Eric Musselman has tried to play 1 freshman a lot. This year, he's tried to do 4, is what he did in the end. But one of them was out in the middle of the season, Nick Smith, and came back. It's arguably the most talented roster in the SEC. Kentucky could maybe lay claim to having a better roster, but they split in the regular season. And who's still playing and who's back home making excuses?
Yeah, I think Alabama probably has the most versatile roster and length. They're similar to Arkansas in that vein, and I think that's been able to, really give them a lot of success because they're a tough matchup. The thing about Arkansas, it sounds like I'm being critical, but I'm not. I'm just making points in that I thought during the season that, Coach Musselman, you really have to trust him he really has to trust you to get playing time. And, he played 7 and 8 guys, and I think they got tired going down the stretch. And I think that was one thing that we really could see that they were tired. They got 4 or 5, 6 days, out of being in the NCAA tournament, playing a game, got healthy, got rested. Looks like to me, and so I think that hadn't been as big a factor before as it was during the season. But I do think they got tired. So there are a lot of things you could say. I wonder why he did this. I wonder why he did that. But in the end, all that matters is you're in the Sweet 16, You got there, and you again. I want to point out he's won 8 games in the NCAA tournament in his 3 years here. In between Coach Richardson's time and his time, 20 plus years, they won 2.
And from the time Nolan Richardson left to now, that 20-year period, the Hogs won 2 games in the tournament.
2 games in the NCAA tournament, and he's won 8 in the last 3 years.
Okay, put that time frame in perspective, because I'm going to carry that forward a little bit. But Nolan Richardson was there 85 to 02. So you had after him guys like Stan Heath, John Pelfrey came up there, and Mike Anderson, and you had 2. I mean, that's as bizarre a stat as well. There's two of them. One is Southern Cal from 1982, after that season until 2002. I guess the second year of Pete Carroll, they only had 1 10-plus win season in that 20-year cycle. It's hard to believe. Yet you would think by watching TV with all the minders and the narrative that Southern Cal was in the hunt for the national championship every single year. The second one that's as a bizarre stat, because I've grown up a Cowboys fan. I still love the Cowboys. You can't not. But when they won at Tampa Bay this year, that was their first road playoff win since 93. It's just hard to believe.
And they knocked out the GOAT.
Yes,
in his career, as far as we know. We'll see if he doesn't come back again. I'm not so sure about that. But, yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling when you do some research and, on teams and stuff. There are perceptions and there are realities. And the perceptions are far too considered realities at times. Then you go look behind the numbers and all that, and you find out that, well, that's not really what I thought, So.
Well, I mean, Dudley, and I think, living in Memphis, you're an Arkansan, you're a Mississippian, you're a Tennessean, you're a TAM, the old ABA team. But that's the truth. I mean, because Arkansas, Bud Walton Arena, before that Barnhill, you just think of 19,000 at every game, calling the Hogs. And we know that they struggled. I mean, Stan Heath, John Pelfrey, Mike Anderson had success, some, but it just, nobody was going to recreate and duplicate what Nolan did in his 17 years. But again, that shows you, I mean, when we're talking to Jimmy Ott yesterday from Baton Rouge and about LSU basketball. I mean, they've only been to the NCAA tournament 7 times in the last 25 years. But you go back to his Final Four with Glenn Baby Davis and Stromile Swift and guys like Collis Temple III. That it gets in your head, and you think that they're there, year in and year out. But that's amazing. Eric Musselman and Arkansas have won 8 NCAA games in the last 3 seasons, and they got 4 to go. It could be 12. What if that happens? What are you going to do?
Well, bow maybe, because if you can get this, if you can turn this around. We are not worthy. Yeah, I mean, look at the bracket that they're in. You've got UCLA, UConn, Arkansas, and Gonzaga. I mean, that's just Las Vegas hit the jackpot, didn't they?
Yeah. And Dudley, what did Jim Calhoun? He was a hell of a coach. Won 3 national championships at UConn. And then after he left, another coach came and won one there, didn't he? Don't they have like 4?
Kevin Ollie, I think. Yeah.
Kevin Ollie, yeah. So Arkansas and UConn in Las Vegas. That is, I mean, what a place to go play. Eric Musselman is somebody was talking yesterday about when he was with the Hawks in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. They'd gotten to be spend some time with him yeah, over there. It was Tommy Kane on the show yesterday with us from ACC Network and Fox Sports over there. He's been with them for a long time now. He's got his own production company, but he spent some time with Eric Musselman. He said you go in his office and there are books everywhere. He reads about basketball strategy and history and all. Basketball savant, whatever you want to call him. I still, the smartest people that I listen to for basketball have all raved about Eric Musselman for a long time and his father, Bill Musselman. But to be able to go from an NBA background like that and be that successful in college, because, a lot of them don't like to recruit, is nothing short of amazing.
Dude loves to recruit. I mean, he is a basketball lifer, as you said. He eats, sleeps, and drinks it to the point of you wonder how the man gets any rest. Apparently, it's melatonin. That's what he says he uses, and his wife helps him, reminds him to take his melatonin and all that. But I mean, he's just a phenomenal coach. I mean, you can't. There are apparently. I mean, I shouldn't say there are people who will criticize him during the year when they're losing. When they were 1-5, it was time to move on. He couldn't reach kids anymore. Despite all the things we've gone over. But he has a plan. It sometimes takes a while to come to fruition, but it has. And, it's just hard to now they've gone from I don't know if he needs to be here, which was a stupid assertion too. They need to give him $6 million.
Yeah. Hold those thoughts. We're going to be right back because we got to take a quick break. We're going to get into that. Dudley Dawson, ECS House Industries Razorback Report right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Dudley Dawson. If there were people out there, I mean, and there are people that say that about any coach. It doesn't matter. The game's passed him by. He can't relate to kids and all. But those kinds of people, I always love to ask this question. What do you do for a living? What is your job? Are you in sales? If you have a slow month, does that mean you give up? I mean, some people, yeah, that's the answer. But the psychology of being a coach, when you say, Dudley, involves being able to get through to your kids. You can yell at them, scream at them, push them as hard as you want. But unless they understand what they're doing it for, you're probably not going to get the results you would really want, would you?
Yeah, a couple of points here. When somebody has a history of getting it done, and it's not getting done at the point, you can overreact. But that is the nature of society these days, that because you raise expectations, if they're not meeting them, you forget about, again, the lack of success to a certain extent. I don't want to, criticize those other coaches too much, but numbers are numbers. You win or you don't win in the NCAA tournament, and that's what you're judged by. You can go 8-10 in the regular season, but if you get to Sweet 16, very few people focus on 8-10 during the regular season. They focus on what you do at the end of the year. But again, when you don't meet those people's expectations, then you get criticized. Then it flips really quickly to when you beat a couple teams get into the Sweet 16, and suddenly, as I was saying, they all want to raise your salary. That's one thing with Coach Pelfrey. When he was here, beat Oklahoma very early on in his career, and everybody. That was a really good Oklahoma team with Blake Griffin. And they were saying, raise his salary, make sure he stays here. Well, they did, and they were stuck with the contract when things didn't go very well. So it's an overreactionary thing on plenty of times. But again, I judge coaches about what they're due at the end of the year. Now, you've got to win enough to get in the tournament. And there were some people here that were worried about them even getting in the tournament, even though they were a solid 8 seed because of their non-conference schedule and what they got done. And now everybody says, oh, well, they were seeded too low. They should have been a 6. And I went, no, they were seeded about where they wanted to be. Again, the regular season was underachievement for what they expected or for what the expectations had been that they had set themselves out, because there'd never been this type of McDonald's All-American talent walk in here since the late 1980s and early 1990s.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. Mr. Green Jeans, Helena, Arkansas, listening, says, keep Nick Smith from dominating basketball, and Arkansas may make Final Four. Now, you can read into that question what you want, but I want the ball in that guy's hands. I just want the team to do well, but what's your take on that? Mr. Green Jeans in Helena, Arkansas, home of my grandparents.
Well, I assume that because Nick didn't play well the other day, and because of the stats you reeled off that they were 2-5 once he came back, that that's a negative toward Nick Smith, and that is one of the reasons I think he broke down in the locker room after the game the other day. I don't know if people had a chance to see the video, but you can see how much it means to him. You can see the weight that he's carrying because he was the can't miss guy. That he's still going to be a lottery pick. I mean, you can say all you want to, but he's still going to be a lottery pick. As I've said on here, I've defended him a lot of times, and I will defend him. Not everything that went right in his recruitment and his this season, is the way I would have done it. But I've got a lot of admiration for the young man. And when things were going wrong, when they were going 8-10, when they were started 1-5, and he was hurt and wasn't playing, he became the poster child for the frustration and vendetta. I think it's sad that that became a thing, but it did. I wouldn't be surprised if because he has such great talent, that he goes out there and has a great game Thursday. I will say that aspect as well. You can't be dribble dominant. You can't be ball dominant. Arkansas was at its best in the second half when the ball was being moved around. And to be honest, he didn't play a lot, in the second half in terms of just being the focal point of the start of the play. The initiation of the offense. Obviously, when you put him up against what Devo did in the second half, and the emotion that he showed, there's going to be a narrative that comes out of that. But again, he's a great teammate regardless of what some people want to do.
Well, people are always going to have things like that. Now, I certainly wasn't saying that they were 2-5 just because he came back.
I know.
Yeah, I know. But here's another one that came on here from Meatloaf from Waycross, Georgia. I love these names. Must know I like music. Regular season college basketball is only a way to qualify for the NCAA tournament. Conference tournaments are just an extra exhibition qualifying series. That from Meatloaf in Waycross, Georgia, not too far from Okefenokee Swamp.
That may very well be true, but if you don't do good enough, you've got to get to the line, or you don't get invited to play in the tournament. North Carolina, I can tell you that. North Carolina, who is so good, they got the NCAA championship last year, don't make the NCAA tournament this year, and refuse a berth in the NIT, saying we're going to focus on next year. Come on now.
I agree with you. And that the regular season does matter, because you look at every game at Arkansas and Auburn and Alabama, Tennessee, they're packing these arenas. They do matter. It's because everything that you do is positioning you and giving you a better chance to do well the next game and the next game and so on. So, yeah, the regular season, if you're not good in the regular season, unless you win your conference tournament, you're not going to the NCAA tournament. So could you say that's a diametrically opposing argument?
Absolutely. Love that phrase, by the way. Give yourself 50 points.
I remember that World History 101, my freshman year, Dr. Bohannon used to use that term a lot, but it's crazy. But Dudley, Nick Smith and Devo Davis, again, we were watching the Arkansas game, then we had to make a run to win. We were coming back over the ridge, heading east, and it was absolutely gorgeous listening to the Arkansas Basketball Network. It was unbelievable. Hogs win! You heard it. I mean, but Musselman getting on there. And Devo Davis, that was on Twitter, what it means to these people to represent the state of Arkansas. And Ben Troop's going to join us in a minute. He's from Swainsboro, Georgia. He went to Florida. But, whether you're from a big town or a small town, I always noticed, Dudley, when these kids come out after the game, after they take a shower, and there's so many family members and coaches and people from their towns that are there. But what matters is who's there when you don't win. That's the most important. I was taught that as a kid at Auburn games, always. But it's they're floating on clouds when they win. It's who's there when they don't win.
Well,
get them back up.
Let's just put it this way: there were people leaping off the bandwagon as Arkansas came down the stretch. Now they're hurting themselves trying to get back on and saying, "I was here all along. I never doubted this and that." We got receipts here. We see what you put on social media. We know. Come on now. It's just the way it is. And the regular season does matter. Does in football. It does in the fact that, like Arkansas's baseball team has won 14 in a row. That's going to come, in non-conference play. That's going to help them down. When it comes to RPI time, obviously they got a big one with number 1 LSU this weekend that will be fun. That's what I'll be covering. And it's one of those things that Dave Van Horn, Eric Musselman, Sam Pittman, the others know what they're doing in terms of getting you to a certain spot. Now, the avenue that you take may not be the one that everybody else chooses. It may not. You may get criticism along the way, but you've got to believe in what you're doing. Clearly, that's what Coach Musselman did. And as I said, an underachieving regular season, I think, but here they are sitting in the Sweet 16, and that's what you do at the end of the year. It's where you're at the end of the year.
Yeah, and, Ben's on here with us now, and I say that because we get so frustrated. Everything's happening in real time, and it really is interesting to see how emotional people get. Twitter is sort of like looking at a heart monitor, an EKG, or a Richter scale going up and down as the game goes along. Basketball is a 40-minute game. College football game is 60 minutes. I used to love it. Coach Dye would say, you got 60 minutes. Take care of business. Don't wait till the end of the game so the man in the stripes can try to tell you who's going to win and lose. Don't get in that situation. And damn, Dudley, watching this, and Ben, this as a competitor. Who do you want in that huddle with you? Who do you want out on the court with you when things are going, aren't going your way? You want the guys that are going, we got this. I mean, like my wife says, every day, do the Superman pose, stand in the mirror and look for 2 minutes and go, we got this. I got this. But don't talk about what you want to do. Say, we are committed to having the best show, the best team. I'm committed to being the best writer that I can be. The psychology of sports, Dudley, is critical in everything we do. And I hope you can stay on with Ben and us for a while. But I love the psychology of it. And Dudley, when you write, and Ben, this. And by the way, Dudley, you already seen my man Marcus Woodson is ranked right now as the number 2 recruiter in the country. I wish he was back on the Plains. He's been at Fresno State, Memphis, Auburn, Florida State. He wants to be a head coach. Watch out for him. But
well, I'm sure he will be down the line. He's certainly had a lot of success recruiting here already, not only in guys that he's gotten from the transfer portal, but also in 2024 and visits that they've got from kids. The one thing before we move on, I will say, if they're not criticizing you, they don't care about you, and you haven't done anything. They only criticize people who've won before.
Yeah. And you know what, Ben, I would say this. What kills a program more quickly than anything is apathy. You want people that care, don't you?
Of course. I mean, sometimes, I think we look at criticism the wrong way. I mean, Ron Zook used to tell us criticism is just feedback. You just don't like who's giving it. You don't like where it's coming from. And that has to do with visibility. I mean, the thing about Arkansas that you can appreciate is this. My best game, my favorite game in college was against my cousin / my fake cousin. His name is Titus Peoples. He played defensive tackle at Arkansas. And he used to always say, man, y'all don't know what really going on up here. He used to always say, he said, we in a part of the country to where it's just us. Like, we ain't surrounded by, this ain't, quote, SEC country, but it's like Mizzou. Nobody's there but them. But he goes, the last thing y'all want us to do is wake up. He said, because we good across the board. Like, football, basketball. I mean, Arkansas used to dominate in track because of them freaking cross country. You couldn't beat nobody in Arkansas. But I do appreciate the fact that basketball is the most honest sport, because if you good enough, you'll get in. And I know Izzo and company, Michigan State and UCLA, they scared because they're the last blue bloods left to cope, make this thing. But listen, 3 SEC teams in the Sweet 16. Texas, if you want to count them. I mean, if you want to count them as 4. but I listen, the scariest team right now, Princeton, because them smart boys, they can hoop, right? But Arkansas is one of those teams to where you don't want a team that has a never die mentality. The hardest teams to beat are the teams that just won't go away. Up by 20, down by 20, they're going to keep coming. But I like it, man. There is nothing more prestigious than being in the field of 64. You make it a Sweet 16, banners going up. It don't got you want to be the natty. But how many teams don't make sweet? You go up in any basketball training facility in college, you're going to see them banners. Sweet 16s are precious. And the fact that Arkansas is going to be a horse to one up, I'm telling you, it's going to be – this Sweet 16 group is going to be really, really unique. When going into the tournament, people say you didn't have a favorite. And obviously, bold and true. But listen, we're going to need the Arkansas world to come together to bring down the Crimson Tide if it does come to that point, because we don't need Alabama winning nothing else. Just take it out.
Dudley, take that one. That was a good. Ben, you're right. You're going to raise those banners. It means a lot.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest about this thing. There are plenty of people, including Nick Saban, apparently, who are unhappy the way that Alabama's basketball situation was handled, and they have become the villain. And it seems like a lot of people relish that role. But there are going to be a lot of people, whoever Alabama plays, rooting against Alabama, not necessarily for the team they're playing because of the way they handled it. I've been very clear about this, from day one. I think Brandon Miller's, is a phenomenal player. He's going to, be a high draft pick. But that just was not handled the way it would have been handled if his name had been Dudley Dawson.
Yeah.
Or his name had been Brooks Dawson and he was my son. So again, the minutia of the thing, you break it down. He was at a scene where something really bad happened. And, there's consequences for everything.
Yeah. And Ben, you've talked about that. I mean, what a coach like Steve Spurrier would have done on something like that, or Ron Zook. What would have happened? I mean, you can't say exactly, but you're part of that program. And you're representing the University of Florida or Alabama. You got to think about that.
I don't know. I don't understand what these coaches are so afraid of. God forbid I make the right decision, right? Like, what? So let me get this straight. I'd rather my legacy be tied to something that is going to be horrific forever than to do the right thing. And people say, hey, you took that kid off the floor. Yeah. No, I didn't take him off the floor. He took himself off the floor. Because the whole thing about it is, these are 4 to 5 years of his life in the basketball, 1 or 2 years of his life, and he's going to have to answer to it sometimes we need protection from ourselves. Coach is supposed to protect us from ourselves. That's what I thought a coach is supposed. You don't put me in harm's way on the court of the field. Why would you put me in harm's way away from it? Nobody's that good of a player. I don't care who you are. And just because I just happen to be a lottery pick, one of the best Alabama team we've ever seen. So we gonna look. And man, tell me about the best Alabama team. Somebody wanted the kid that was on it that gave the gun to the kid. That's what it has to be. And Florida's best years were 2006, 2008. While they were very successful, it was a lot of stuff that went on. And when that 30 for 30 come out, you're going to see what really went on, and you're going to see how the depths that coaches are willing to win championships. I'm going to say this. You want to win the Natty, but who cares? You want to win it? Okay. But what happens to these people after the fact? Yes, Urban Meyer goes on, legendary.
Hold that thought, Ben, because you are on fire, and we're getting lit up with comments from people that are agreeing with you and Dudley. This is great. We'll be right back. All right, real quick, let me say something about one of our sponsors, Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Check her out on our website, sidelines.live. Check out the Hobson Realty hyperlink. Eleanor's background is strong, really strong. Third generation Hobson realtor, top 5% out of 4,600 plus realtors in the Memphis market in 2022. I know Eleanor. I know her husband, Barry. Great people. If you are moving to a house in Memphis, you're looking to buy or sell, you're getting relocated from Atlanta, from Dallas to Memphis, call Eleanor Maynard Hobson Realty. Make it simple. It's a turnkey operation. She'll get you hooked up with, the closing attorneys, the bank, everybody that you need. If you've got to have work done on the house, it's a turnkey operation. Eleanor Maynard Hobson Realty. She's going to be coming on here soon. We'll introduce you to her, but get her on your side. Ben, you were on fire going into that break. And Dudley Dawson, I'm getting compliments from people going, both of these guys are what I like to call truth brokers. And I appreciate that. So Dudley, Ben, carry on, my friend.
No, this is me doing my best not to turn into my daddy. I'm not going to win that fight. I'm going to turn into this man no matter. I'm not going to tuck my shirts in, but my t-shirts in. But I just know this. At the end of the day, the longer you play sports, the more you have to affect your legacy, because you're giving us a reason. You got two kinds of people. You got the people that love sports, and you got the people that love real life. The real life people, they're going to judge you on what you did in life, right? So the Brandon Miller kid is at his own detriment. It's the head coach. It's like, look, just take him off the court. Because what you're really saying is, what if we don't win and we take him off the court? Okay. It's not like you're affecting Alabama's basketball legacy. If you do, there is no legacy in Alabama basketball like it is football. But Dudley, you know this. You are doing more harm to because that Brandon kid, look, to the people that don't know sports, they're going to talk about that incident for life, no matter where he goes, no matter where. And that's what sports taught me. If you Jameis Winston, they're going to say, who, the guy that won the national championship, number 1 overall pick? No, the guy that had the allegations at Florida State. Because you don't get to just talk about the good stuff. And that's the thing about an athlete that we have to understand. It's the good and the bad. Yes, you want to be celebrated for your achievements, but what else did you do? Is that all you did? Urban Meyer, the guy that was Ohio State, the guy that was at Florida? No, the guy that was at Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. That guy. You don't get and to me, the problem with sports is you only want favorable stuff. No, man, if you put your hands on women, you might not do it no more, but you did, didn't you? Yeah. Mm-hmm. People want to talk about that aspect, and that's the part that I don't think the head coach at Alabama is doing his player, You're doing him a disservice because there's a young lady who's gone forever, and they made it to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, Nate Oates. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Nate Oates gets a lot of the blame, and he should have, but that goes from the top of the university on because he has bosses. What they should have done, in my opinion, and I'm not saying that I'm right, it's just my opinion, is that even if you set him out for a half, the first half, or you set him out for one game, you acknowledge that he did something wrong. Nobody at that university is, to my knowledge, has even made a statement even remotely saying that he shouldn't have been there. That's all. I mean, that's really all many people won't just say he shouldn't have been there. You say he was at the wrong time at the wrong place. I love Saban's, he says he wasn't making a pointed comment. Come on, man. You just don't have it. I had a tweet. The Alabama softball coach got thrown out the other night. I said the dude said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time at the wrong place. And, it's just one of those things. You just did not acknowledge that anybody did anything wrong. And that was, to me, disrespectful to the young lady's family and disrespectful to your fans and people out here who just want you to say everything's like at National Lampoon's Animal House. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Just say something. Something went wrong.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. What happened with here in Memphis, John Morant for the Grizzlies, the face of the Grizzlies. Okay. He got in, trouble, allegations about he was in an SUV after a game. Somebody was pointing a red laser tag at some Indiana Pacers players in another vehicle. Then he got into the real trouble, it looked like, when he was in Denver. And Ben, you know this, and Dudley, you know it. Look, I've grown up around guns, hunting and fishing. I live in Memphis, the largest small town in America. Everybody I know hunts and fishes and has guns. But by God, with my kids, I always handed them a squirt gun pointed down. I wanted to teach them from an early age to have respect for that firearm. Hey, if we're hunting and somebody's gun goes off and it went off. No, it didn't. Hunt's over, buddy. We're done. So what happened to John Morant? You know this, Ben, from being a professional athlete. He was suspended, I believe, for 8 games, and that's without pay, isn't it? And it doesn't matter if he's got a $250 million contract or not. And Dudley, you know it from all these athletes, and I know it. That stuff matters. I mean, and that was just for taking a picture with it, wasn't it, Ben? Is that what it was? And man, the NBA was like, don't even go there.
No, John Morant had to realize real quick who he is.
Yeah.
Chris Rock said it the best. You want to do the most, you better have the least. Because if you got the most, you can't do that stuff. And that's the hardest thing, right? You finally made it to this level. Well, you're not normal, John Morant. You're the most recognizable person probably in the state of Tennessee, not just Memphis, right? You know this Ja. You're a one-name superstar. And at first, right, he wanted to be really, really, really rebellious, right? But somebody told him, no, you can't win this fight because they're going to take your money from you. So then Poway, the Gatorade, whoever, they took their responsibility. So now you lose the national endorsements because you're supposed to live off the extra money, not the money you make. They took that from you. And all you got is your reputation and image, John. Memphis ain't winning championships yet. So what he realized was they sat Jalen Rose in front of him, and Jalen Rose, he's talking to him with his eyes, but saying, so he's looking at him like, you messing this up, right? We've seen this before, right? And what Ja had to realize is either you're going to fall in line because you want that LeBron James legacy, that Steph Curry legacy, or you're just going to be another big-time superstar that people are going to say, oh, man, what could have been, should have been. I appreciate Ja. It's what you said, Dudley, with Brandon. Brandon Miller, they should let him go out there and say, listen, man, let him talk. I don't get it when they don't let him hey, man, listen, I'm young. I made a dumb mistake, and I shouldn't have done it, right? With Ja, he's not, he's what, 22, 23, whatever he is, but somebody said, hey, dude, you got to go out there and stand in front of these cameras. We can't protect you now. And by him standing up there and saying he's going to counseling, he's going to therapy, he's doing the necessary things. The hardest thing for any athlete to realize is everybody can't go, man. I love my family. I love my friends, but they ain't you. My mom, my 5th year in the NFL, I think I'm with the Tampa Bay Bucks. We in Celebration, Florida. That's Orlando, but it's a little place called Celebration where they blare Disney carols throughout this loudspeaker throughout the whole city. It's weird. You live 24 hours a day. We going to practice one day, and my mom says, Benny, you know what? I apologize because you're the only one going to them practices. You're the only one going to 2 days and dealing with aches and pains, feeling like a older man and you in your 20s. But y'all got to realize that too. Ain't nobody there but you, man. So when it's all said and done, you either gonna sink or swim on him. And I'm happy that it happened this early because we think that we got to show some level of loyalty to our. No, they ain't you. They ain't go to Kent State. They ain't 2nd overall pick behind Zion. If they think you ain't down for them, move on. I'm a fight to be over there when they the one begging for tickets. Man, you don't get out of here with, and it's hard to do that though. But I'd rather be a young wise man than a young fool, man. I'm happy that John Morant is getting it together. Dudley, Rob, y'all know this. It's gonna be a crying shame if a young man that talented. Memphis ain't had something to really go crazy about in a long time, and you got a young man like this. I'm happy that 8 games and them. No, it ain't the 8 games. It's them endorsements. When he lost that money, they got his attention now. Because when he got that call from the CEO saying, "John, man, we appreciate it, but we gonna move on because we can give anybody our money."
Yeah,
don't want to give it to you.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I would say is fortunately or unfortunately, my name is Dudley. And here in the state of Arkansas, there's not a lot of Dudleys running around. So if somebody says Dudley did this, Dudley did that, everybody knows who did that. And it's something I can't get away from. Certainly I've made mistakes over my life. But with Ja, when you see, everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows what you're doing. As you say, you got to let your boys go. So, someday, you got to be the face of the franchise. And first of all, you got to be a guy who could continue to bring in both success for the city of Memphis, yourself, all that. I'm so glad that he got into counseling and all that. Whether it was his idea or the NBA's. You played in the NFL. Everybody knows what you're doing. The NFL's got people who follow people around, all that. You ain't fooling anybody. Now, I'll say I've had a gun in my hand. I'll say that I might have been in a gentleman's club, but I've never been both and had it filled.
Yeah. That's the quote of the day. We had the place called the Purple Church, Platinum Plus in Memphis. If those walls could talk, and they tore it down, and then they put a new car place there. And actually, it was my wife's ex-husband bought it for a car place. And I said they should have called it the Purple Church car lot, but they didn't do that. But a lot of crazy stuff goes on there. But Ben and Dudley, this has been as brilliant a take on this as anybody, because I live in Memphis. John Morant, okay, Elvis is Elvis. It's John Morant. And there's so many people, adults and kids, looking up to Ja because nothing. And we're going to have Dr. Hardgrave, the president of the University of Memphis, is going to be on with us tomorrow morning talking about what they're doing over there and their future in athletics. But when you go to and look, my favorite Grizzlies player of all time is a Cowboy, Oklahoma State, Tony Allen. Grit and grind. That's where they get the Grindhouse nickname from. But those are my favorite memories with my kids when they were little and as they were growing up. Do they ever really grow up? Hell, I don't know. But going to those Grizzlies games, and I think it was 2013, that playoff series with Oklahoma City Thunder and San Diego, the Clippers at the time. Just the atmosphere at the Forum, 19,000. John Morant is the most well-known person in Memphis today. And you're right. Everybody's watching you. I love what and you know what, guys, Ben, don't you get a paycheck for every NBA game? You go to California, play the Lakers. Yeah, you get a 13.5% clip for that state income tax they have out there. You know he's paying attention to his money, isn't he, John?
Oh yeah, he has to. And I mean, hopefully Memphis will have a guy like Zach Randolph, Zebo, like sit down with Ja and tell
He's
him
back in town.
Yeah, because the thing about pro sports that's not, they don't give enough credit and credence. So you got to bring back formal, recognizable, respectful players of these franchises. You tell the current crop, we've done this before, right? Like we've been successful before. You're just the current crop, and I get it. We love the current crop, right? We get it, but we lose sight of the fact that these bricks were built well before you got here. Your job is to add more bricks to us already. You ain't here to tear nothing down. Listen, I don't care who you. I love Ja. You ain't gonna be loved like Zebo was loved. Zach Randolph, man, Zach Randolph. Every dad bod in the world loves Zach Randolph. Zach Randolph, it lifted weights, it didn't show, but on the court, you could not stop Zebo. And to me, he epitomized Memphis, the city, with how he played. And the thing about Ja is, the hardest thing to do is to take what you have and take it to the next level. Everybody think they can do it. It's hard because the requirements keep going up, and now everything is highly scrutinized. The only thing saved me, Dudley, in college was no cameras too. If it was cameras when I'm in college, it's going to be the year of the backups because the starters ain't going to make it to the game. We're done. It's over. You listen. The backups parents like is. I love these games. Why? Because my son play every week. Because the starters. We go to the hotel on Friday nights in college. You know why? Because that's the only way we make it to the game Saturday.
Right.
If they let us loose on Friday night and we 18 to 22, the whole. They say the field smells like alcohol. Were these kids drinking? What the hell you think? Yeah, they were drinking last night. They got Tennessee tomorrow. It's stressful. So I'm just saying, listen, at the end of the day, as my granddad would say, he said, listen, man, he said the difference in Uncle Sam and Jesus loves you. You have to give him his 10%. Uncle Sam takes his. I don't trust y'all. I'm taking everything y'all owe me before you get when it comes to these things, we got to know, man, that unfortunately you're the less than 1% of basketball. What, 60 guys get drafted, only 30 guys make it, and you were number 2, Ja. So I'm wishing him nothing but the best, but I think Ja needs to understand that people love him for more than basketball. He got to know that, and hopefully I don't see this happening again because Ja seems very, very likable. He seems very easy going down to earth. I hope this is not going to kill his legacy, but he got to know that his circle got to get smaller, or unfortunately that same circle he got will be the reason why he don't have the legacy we think he potentially could have.
Well, you think about Zach Randolph, Zebo in Memphis. Like I got numerous pictures of my kids in high school running into Zach, getting gas, out east where he lived in Memphis. And he'd take pictures with all the kids. He'd go down to MLGW, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, and take $25,000 and help people who legitimately needed it and pay their utility bills out of his own pocket. And the stuff that he does and then when he left Memphis, it was sad. I mean, I know it's a business, that. I mean, Ben, it sucked, but he's back in Memphis. I was at a Grizzlies game back before Christmas, and there he is coming down in the crowd. I mean, it took him half an hour to walk to his seat because everybody wanted to touch him and talk to him and say, but you know what people say to him? They say, thank you for just being who you are. And God, y'all both get it. We're going to take a quick break and come back. We've got a few more minutes because I'm learning a lot from both of y'all because Dudley, you were on the staff with Eddie Sutton and Nolan Richardson at Arkansas, and Ben, you've played the games. And for people, these professional athletes, and also there's a lot of pressure. They can't really go places. Could you imagine Elvis, if he were alive today with social media, if Elvis had a Twitter account? But anyway, he's not, but some people think he never died, that he was picked up by aliens, but that's another story. But we're going to be right back with Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Ben Troop, ESPN Coastal in Savannah, right after this.
From Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
And, Dudley, you and Ben both have made so many great points, and it's just people need to get it. These professional athletes, what kind of impact they have, and we all know so many great things that Ja has done for people off the court. And you know what? We got Coach Brady on here with us, going to be joining us in just a second. He knows from his experience about, and I think even, Coach Brady, you said it a few weeks ago, you can't take everybody with you. We were talking about Ja Morant and, his deals there, for doing what he did. He got an 8-game suspension, and I think that's 8 games without pay. And it doesn't matter how big his contract is. And Ben, you played in the NFL, and Dudley, from being in this for a long time, those guys, you get a paycheck for every game. I think they sent a message to Ja, get it together. And Coach, from your background, a longtime coach, I would not want to get you mad at me. You just, because you're kind of quiet and you've got that look about you, and Frank Duffy, perhaps the most interesting man in the world.
Well, those things today are much, much more delicate than they were 10 or 15 years ago, in terms of why young men react the way they do when they find themselves in certain situations, And you just saw Nick Saban's comments about decisions and choices you make, and there's consequences for all of those. And I think that's the way it is now. But there's much more awareness of young players who need some guidance. And the money 10, 20 years ago was good, but it wasn't like it is now. And you can't tell me that some of these young men with the backgrounds they come from, and they're all of a sudden making $15, $16 million a year, it doesn't affect their psyche a little bit. And I think a lot of times they need some guidance, some advice, get somebody around that really is out for their interest, not selfish interest. And I think it's hard to find that. And our basketball coach here at LSU, Coach Ja at Murray State, and he's very aware and sensitive to that situation. And everybody wants Morant to get the help he needs to stabilize himself and be able to handle success at that level. I think there's more understanding now than it was maybe 15 or 20 years, more awareness now of those situations. And I really think the money has changed it a little bit too, where young players today have more of a difficult time handling that type of success.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dudley and Ben, what Coach said, I think I read something that Michael Jordan, compared to what LeBron and some of these guys are making today, it pales. But of course, he had some shoe deals with that, Nike. But he put it in a great perspective, Dudley.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these things, and Coach Brady has a great comment there. We kind of focus on things that get laid out in the media that, are found out. There are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Ben, you mentioned, that the Friday nights that there's in the hotels and stuff. there have been so many things over the course of the 40 years I've covered sports up here that were not made public, that people would, really have concerns about, that coaches, administrators are dealing with, but it wasn't the narrative of Twitter, the camera phones, all that wasn't out there. It's gone on for so long, but like Coach Brady is saying, the money, the time that's invested in these young men, it plays a factor in all this, and I think that fortunately, Ja is going to get into a situation. I actually think that he'll be a better player and a better human being down the line because of the adversity he's going through. And that the Memphis Grizzlies, who I enjoy watching, but at times are full of themselves, will be better because of going through this and realizing you don't walk into, and I'm a Celtics fan, but you don't walk into the Lakers house and start yelling stuff.
Yeah.
Win something first.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, moving on now to the tournament that we're talking, and, Ben and Dudley and I have been talking a lot of basketball today. This Sweet 16 SEC, it was a pretty, you saw everybody play. You're the LSU Radio Network basketball color man. You saw them all play. Are you surprised that there are 3 teams there, or are you surprised there's not more than 3 in the Sweet 16?
Well, I think the SEC showed up pretty good in the NCAA tournament. The biggest, I don't say disappointment or surprise, was how Texas A&M flamed out. I mean, I thought they were really playing well and had a nice way about them, and they didn't show up at all in the NCAA tournament, which was a little surprising to me. But the rest of the teams that are in are not surprising to me, and it's. Yeah. And I go back to this, and everybody thinks I'm an old school kind of old timey guy, I guess. But if you look at the teams that are still playing, the majority of the teams, you're not scoring in the 80s and running up and down the floor and scoring early 90s. Most of these teams are high 60s, low 70 teams, and they're all about defending and rebounding. And Alabama's a good defensive team because of their athleticism and length. Tennessee. We've always talked about how good they are defensively and how they rebounded. But if they can score the ball like they did last time out, they've got a chance really to get to the Final Four, obviously. And then you look at Houston, they defend. Texas is all about defending. UCLA is about defending. So still to win a championship, you've got to defend it, you've got to rebound it, and you've got to take care of it. And all the analytics and everything about shooting threes and running up and down the floor and shooting a lot of balls at the goal, those things are all good and fun to watch. But the reality of it is, at the end of the day, to win a championship, you've got to be able to defend it. And Michigan State, they're all about defending and rebounding. So I think as this thing goes on, the scores are going to continue to be in the high 60s, low 70s. Very rarely are you going to see a score in the 80s.
Yeah. Dudley, I know you got to go because I know Ben's got some questions too, but let people know how they can follow you at hogville.net, and always love having you on this show. It's as Dave Cody says, Coach Brady and Ben and all y'all bring credibility, and I want to thank you for it.
First of all, you're about to hear all the dogs barking because somebody's pulled up here. Hogville.net, as I always say, the best message board in Arkansas. And Dead Sports is my Twitter. It's been an honor being on with you guys, and look forward to talking to y'all next time.
All right. Thank you so much. Native of Balch, right next to Newport, Arkansas. I was over there Sunday. Ben, come on in here with Coach Brady. Coach, I like what you just said. There are a lot of scores in the 60s, lower scores, and I hadn't seen a defensive clinic put on in memory like what I saw Houston do to the Auburn Tigers in the second half at Legacy Arena. Auburn was 4 for 24. But Ben, jump in here with Coach.
Coach, Sweet 16, obviously, everybody's talking about Princeton and what they're doing. But what I noticed about the tournament is how much more pressure is it on a team like UCLA, UConn, Michigan State? Because now those are the blue blood, because it's usually, we got these Cinderella teams. Now the blue bloods. All right, blue bloods, show why, you guys are going to – is it more pressure on those teams to not just win, but because there's so many teams like a Alabama, like a Tennessee, that not unusual suspects that's like kind of crashing the party right now.
Yeah, Florida Atlantic. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's a thought process during the course of a practice or looking at the next game or if they feel like they have to carry the torch for the Blue Bloods. I'm not sure that's forefront in their brain, but certainly I think it is good and refreshing to have some teams involved that aren't usually involved. And I think the tournament has been really exciting. And I forgot to mention the Razorbacks and how they defend too. I think if the Razorbacks didn't defend like they defend, they're certainly not going to get it on their shot-making ability from the three-point line. That's not where they are. But, I don't know that. If it was my team, I wouldn't want them thinking they've got to carry the torch for the Blue Bloods. I believe what I would focus on is that we've got to play the best basketball we possibly can at this particular moment, because if we don't, we're going to get beat and we don't have a chance to advance. So I think that's the focus now. All the outside stuff that young people read and everything that's going on, they may pick up on some of that. But as the coach, I would try to make the team think the moment. Let's do it today because there's no tomorrow.
And I know. And I was just gonna say, Rob, I know when it comes to like, obviously we love the tournament because the making into the team, the top 64 is already prestigious. But Coach Izzo, stay in power. Because Coach Izzo been doing it well before social media, well before, I like to call it the transfer portal or college basketball free agency, as I like to call it. What do you say to a coach that's been doing it for that long, who really has had to adjust to the one and dones, transfer portal, social media? A guy like Coach Izzo, who even though Coach Rick Pitino, I think he's going to be back here real soon at St. John's. But right. What do you say to the staying power of a guy like Coach Izzo?
They're smart and respect. Those guys are really smart. They know how to adapt. They know how to change. They're not afraid of change. They're not afraid of adapting. And you have to give them a tremendous amount of respect for coaching through decades. We're not talking about 5 or 6 years. We're talking about 30 years of coaching at the highest level. So yeah, I think they're very smart. They're not afraid to change or adapt to anything that's new. And then you have to give them the respect that they also have earned by what they've accomplished.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Zebo, and I know what he means to the people of Memphis. And when he was traded away, it was a sad day, but I understand it's a business decision. But he kept his house in Memphis, and he's back in Memphis. And when you go to a Grizzlies game, and that's one of Tom Izzo's players, sometimes I've been to many Grizzlies games, and you'll see Tom Izzo out there in the stands. He'll come watch, especially when the Grizzlies were playing Golden State with Draymond Green and Zebo on. It was just some of my best memories. I'm a Tom Izzo fan. I think he's been to 15 Sweet 16s and 9 Final Fours. Hey, man, when he retires, when Judd Heathcote, the coach that was there at Michigan State before him, retired, he did a road tour in the Big Ten that year. And when they played at Michigan or Ohio State, they had a giant rocking chair out there at midcourt, to say goodbye to him. When Tom Izzo retires, just play Sinatra's song, man. I did it my way, because I like what you say. He hadn't acquiesced and capitulated to weakness and softness. I believe you got to be tough. You got to be hard. You got to be fair. Look at the results he gets every year. And I think he's a Hall of Fame coach for sure, but Coach, as a coach, how hard it is to maintain that year after year. You appreciate it more than anybody.
Well, getting there is one thing, but staying there is a whole nother thing. And those coaches have gotten there and they've sustained it and they've kept it. And you can't do that unless you're aware of your circumstances and what's going on around you. Bobby Knight, I respect, but he couldn't adapt to the change that was happening out there. It didn't fit his personality. But evidently Rick Pitino enjoys it, can do it. Izzo's incredible what he has sustained and the way he's adapted and adjusted. And, you've got to take your hats off to those guys. And they continue to recruit good players. And I do believe you can still coach a guy and challenge him and be direct with him and tell him what he needs to hear But at the same time, you have a flair about yourself like Izzo seems to have, that his players still respect and want to play for him, in spite from time to time that he does get pretty direct and throws a Nolan Ryan fastball every now and then. But I think that's something some coaches have and some don't. And those two guys, certainly have it.
Yeah. Ben, you played for some intense coaches, Steve Spurrier and Ron Zook. I mean, I can imagine what that was like.
It was, I always say this, Coach Spurrier was the coach I chose. Ron Zook was the coach I needed. And the thing about Ron Zook is he was very, very, very demanding. And a lot of times we hear a demanding coach and we think it's just with the players. No, with the training staff, equipment staff, it's everybody. It's almost like people used to have the thing, Ron Zook, coach is coming, and people used to, act like they're doing work and all kind of stuff. But you realize he's trying to get you on the same level he is mentally. Because nobody's under more pressure than the coach. I don't care what you are. Coach has to go to meetings. His boss is athletic director. You got to talk to the president. You got to talk to donors. You got to talk. So I think what Ron Zook showed me is you can't take a day off, not a playoff, because you always being watched. He says, unfortunately, my livelihood is in the hands of 17 to 22-year-olds. But guess what? I'm not going to treat y'all like y'all age. And I think what players have to understand is, it's like if I just go up to my mom and hug her and I don't say anything, I'm just saying, Mama, thank you, because you had to deal with a lot when it comes. It's like when John Calipari got inducted to the Hall of Fame and he had all those players behind him. He knows the players. We don't give y'all coaches enough credit, coach, because y'all know us better than we know us. All y'all do is watch us. I mean, the best readers of body language is the coaches. He used to always say, give me good body language. And he'll let you. So Ron Zook used to tell my mom, just make sure he never forgets me. And I told my mama, do you think I could forget this man? I couldn't forget. I might forget my address before I forget Ron Zook, because he does so much for me, because we think they care about us because we play a sport. No, that's how we got introduced to each other. They care about you past the sport, and they use the sport to kind of teach you life skills. So yeah, man, y'all coaches, y'all are brilliant. It's just the method to y'all madness is different, because that's a lot of people that y'all are responsible for, and we forget y'all still husbands, y'all still fathers, y'all still grandfathers. So I do appreciate it, Coach, because like I say, I always say this. I say, look at the coach when he first get hired. He probably got a head full of hair. Give him 3 years, 4 years, man, that stuff is gone, because that's a lot. Mark Richt is the best. When Mark Richt first got hired at Georgia, man, young, full of energy, right? And I'm praying for Mark Richt, right, with this situation. Mark Richt, about 10 years in, that stuff turning, it don't even turn gray. It turns white. It is rough. Then he goes to Miami. So I appreciate, Coach, you are the reason why I would never coach, because I respect it too much. Y'all boys, you got to be built differently. I don't think coaches make enough. Y'all don't make enough. They should let y'all write in y'all own check. Let the missus write it in, because she's the one that got, she's the one that gets the money in.
Hey, I can attest to the hair thing. Trust me. I used to be. I thought I was one of the Beatles at one time. Man, it left. It's gone now.
Hold those thoughts, Coach. We're going to be right back. Ben Troop, Coach John Brady, Sidelines, making sense on a Wednesday. Right after this. All right, want to say something real quick. I know Ben Troop had to go to a meeting, and Dudley, and we just love it when the people can come on and stay some longer segments, especially when Ben and Coach are on. You're going to learn a lot. Let me say something about another one of our sponsors, Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. If you are looking to buy or sell a house, you've got to get moved. You live in Memphis, or you're getting relocated to Memphis. call Eleanor Maynard at Hobson Realty. You'll find her on our website at sidelines with an S .live. There's a hyperlink on there, Hobson Realty. That's got Eleanor's picture, her phone numbers, and everything. She'll make it easier than you can imagine. It's a turnkey operation, getting the closing attorneys, the banks, everybody involved. If you've got to do work on a house, they can hook you up with contractors, builders, whatever. Buying and selling a house is not easy, okay? Why make it difficult? Make it as easy as possible. Get Eleanor Maynard at Hobson Realty. Top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in the Memphis market in 2022. Third generation Hobson Realtor. She's our realtor. Make her your realtor. Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Coach, I love having Dudley and Ben on, and Yancy Porter's coming on after this from Rebel Yell Hotline. I listened to your segment the other night with Chuck Rounsville and Yancy and Gary Darby, and that was a cool story about Chris Beard. And I've got a text here from one of my listeners, Dave Cody, out in Washington, Bellingham, Washington. He was sports anchor in Austin for 37 years at KTPC Channel 7. And he made a good point. He said, man, you have Coach Brady on there. And that's serious credibility. I mean, we are so blessed. And I cannot thank you enough. But you're genuine. When you talked about Chris Beard, and you don't hold any punches, you tell him, hey, look, man, he's intense, but that's what people need to know, is the story behind the story of these coaches. And Ben just said it, the pressure everywhere you go, and the people, everybody's wanting a piece of you. Pulling your energy away. How did you unwind when you were a coach? And when you go on the road as a color analyst, most every one of these coaches. It's a tight-knit fraternity. Right. But what was your way of relaxing to totally just unwind?
Well, I always had a knack for being able to let it go. Okay. I moved on to the next game, or even if we lost a tough game, I probably was concerned about it for a minute, but I had the ability just to let it go and not let it linger. Some guys can't do that, and it eats at them all the time. But I could move on. I could enjoy myself a couple of days before a game, or even the night before a game. I could go out to dinner and enjoy myself. I was able to do that. Now, in terms of my competitiveness and hating to lose and all of the things and the time that is spent preparing and preparation, I did all of that. But I was able to kind of work through it as it was around me. And one thing, honestly, I never let being the coach at any school that I coached at, or that never defined me as who I was. I was a whole different guy away from that, and it's the way I am now. But I've loved coaching. I was competitive as more than a lot of guys. Hated to lose when I was in that mode, in that moment. Yeah. But it never defined me as a human being or as a person, or made me have more self-worth than if I'm not coaching. And that's why I think I've been able to walk away from it. I don't miss it. I enjoy what I'm doing now, watching it, talking about it, analyzing it. But I think that was one of the keys. I never let the coach being who I was, and that was my reason for getting up every morning. There's much more important things than coaching now once I'm out of it and look back at it.
Yeah. Mike Brady just texted us from Oklahoma City, said, Coach, what do you think, is one of our listeners, about this Gonzaga-UCLA matchup? And do you know Mick Cronin? He's another one of my favorite coaches because he's just such a tough, intense guy. And almost the moment he got to UCLA, success followed him, as it has.
Cronin is a excellent basketball coach, as is Mark Few. I mean, everybody knows Mark Few. I've known Mark Few since he was an assistant coach at Gonzaga way back a long time ago. We took a Sanford team up and played in their tournament when Mark Few was an assistant there at Gonzaga, and in fact, he liked what we did offensively, and he flew to Birmingham at Sanford and spent the weekend with us, watching what we do and watch some tape and all of that. He was willing to learn as a young assistant back in the day.
Wow.
And known him a long time. I think if there's any game that has a chance to be in the 80s, this might be the one. Gonzaga can score it. They score it well. UCLA has a penchant to score it at that level from time to time. But still, particularly UCLA, they're a defensive-minded team. They're going to play hard on the defensive end. And I think if the score gets in the 80s, I think certainly it'll favor Gonzaga, and I think the lower the score in the 70s may favor the Bruins. So we'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think that's really impressive that Mark Few, as an assistant, would come to Birmingham from Spokane and study. But and that happens more often than people think. It happens in football, baseball. I know Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson was on the show with us Saturday morning from Fayetteville. They took like a dozen of their big donors from Auburn up to Fayetteville, and Arkansas just gave them the key and showed them all their facilities because they want to learn and find out, okay, what do we need to be building? So there's a lot more. You want to beat that other guy, but there's a lot more sharing maybe than people realize, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot of that's done. And because back in the day, now it doesn't happen as much now because I really think the money has screwed up relationships that being in the coaching profession can bring. It's a little more sensitive now. But we used to have clinics before the season started. There would be 5 or 6 of us get together and go spend the weekend and watch tape and swap plays and ideas and talk about special situations and circumstances and talk about how you handle different types of discipline that may arise. Yeah, I did that 5 or 6 times before the season with different coaches from around the country. Certainly we'd play golf, from time to time, but it made for a good weekend of bonding and making friendships and really learning from other coaches on what they do with their team. So I don't know if anybody does that anymore, but I certainly used to do that back in the day when I was assistant at Mississippi State, and I was a head coach at Sanford, and even my early days at LSU.
Yeah, and sometimes people will think a guy like Mark Few, certainly he's going to leave and take another job, but Larry Lacewell stayed a long time in Jonesboro at Arkansas State, as he likes to say. Yeah, I don't know if you knew Coach Lacewell, you probably did, but he was amazing, and he lived across the street from my wife's ex-husband, Ray Osment, there in Jonesboro. And Larry Lacewell died this past summer, and a friend of mine, that was his godfather, and was very close to him. But you talk about a football mind and a builder, and he would say, I'm the second best coach to ever come out of Fordyce, Arkansas. Who was number one? Some idiot would ask. Coach Bryant. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, heard of him too.
But that's right. But
when my first couple of days at Arkansas State, this little short guy, bald-headed guy, walked in my office, and before he said a word, I said, "I know who you are." I said, "You're Larry Lacewell. I hear you're a legend around here, these parts." Yeah. And he says, "By God, I am." So
I love it.
He says, "You're exactly right. By God, I am a legend around here."
Yeah. We were up in Jonesboro about 3 weeks ago, spent the night for the Arkansas Waterfowl Hall of Fame dinner. They've built a brand new Embassy Suites right there on Red Wolf Boulevard. And God, it's impressive. And they really, Jonesboro, that's an amazing place. And I think the coolest thing is watching a guy like Mark Few. He's been there so long. He's not going to leave. He is Gonzaga basketball, and I think it's great. But just look at the list of teams in the Sweet 16. I hate that Power 5, Group of 5, whatever. They're keeping score. It's like a poisonous snake. It doesn't matter what kind it is. They still are got fangs. San Diego State, Xavier, Creighton, Princeton from the Ivy League. There's UConn is not from a Power 5 conference, but they've got 4 national championships. Jim Calhoun won 3, and as Dudley reminded me, I couldn't remember, it was Kevin Ollie won another one.
That's right.
UConn was big at the beginning of the season, kind of faded away. They're back. I mean, the Huskies are, playing Arkansas, but I think it's really cool. San Diego State, John Hartwell's on with us a lot. And John talked about the Mountain West. Watch San Diego State, watch Utah State. And a lot of people say, and I agree, San Diego State looks like they're football players playing basketball. What about that matchup with Alabama?
Well, I think San Diego State's a very good team. I had them picked. My bracket is still alive with San Diego State and Alabama playing one another, so I'm still alive in that one. I think as I've said all the time about Alabama, I think their length and athleticism and their depth will play a part in a 40-minute game. I think for a 30-minute game, it's okay, and Alabama is one of the best teams in the country who can all of a sudden spurt out to about a 12 to 14 points in a row, hold you scoreless, and all of a sudden the game separates in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes, just bam. There's not many teams are explosive like that, and Alabama is one of those. My question with Alabama is, are they healthy enough? You know, you got Brandon Miller's banged up a little bit, and their 7-footers banged up a little bit, and I'm interested to see if they're healthy enough to finish it out. But I do think, and I've got Alabama to win it all, simply because I've seen them 4 times this year, and I see how athletic they are and how explosive they are. So, but we'll see. I think San Diego will give them a good game. But as Bob Boyd, the great Bob Boyd that I worked for at Mississippi State, the longtime USC coach, he said the game is not 30, it's not 35, it's 40 minutes. And that game will be 40 minutes. And I think at the end of the day, Alabama wins it.
Sounds like Bruce Pearl. I wish the game was only 20 minutes Saturday at Legacy Arena. But boy, Kelvin Sampson, I don't know if you know him. He's smart. I mean, that second half, hey, foul the hell out of Auburn. They can't hit free throws. He was right. And, you're 19 of 37 from the free throw line. Auburn, if you hit 73%, you win. But again, it's easy to look back in the rearview mirror and say that, but they were 4 of 24 in the second half. It wasn't because they were just missing. That defense that Houston plays, you've got to give them all the credit. They got after Auburn's ass, and they didn't let up.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. It's like I said before. You look at Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, Michigan State, Houston, Texas, UCLA. Yep. They all put their hat on defending and rebounding. And Kelvin Sampson, if you ever just follow his career, that's one of the constants his teams have always been about, is defending in the half court, limiting teams to one shot, and then rebounding the basketball. And it's not going to change with him. He's way down the road to be cute and shoot 33s. That's not happening with his team. So he's going to beat you the way he's beat people for the last 25 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get to the Final Four as well.
Yeah, and you look at, Texas is going to be playing Xavier. Xavier has been around. They're a team. They're out of Cincinnati. You got Cincinnati Bearcats have been on the stage, but not now, but they have been really good in basketball. Xavier, but Creighton, teams like that, Princeton. I watched them in that Ivy League championship, I think against Yale. It was amazing. And I was trying to get Bucky McMillan on this week, but mornings are kind of tough for him. But I love the basketball junkies. Tucker Osborne is a kid that I know from Auburn that went to law school, is a lawyer down in Alabama now, played for Bucky at Mountain Brook and played AAU basketball. His claim to fame is Boogie Cousins was coming down the court and about to run him over and flatten him, and they were playing him, and he picked him up and carried him into the wall to keep from killing him, just his weight. But he used to tell me about Bucky McMillan for years, how good he was going to be. And then, boy, when you talk to him, you talk to you, and we had Martin Newton on the show and talk about, God, his father, C.M. Newton, is one of my favorite people. I'm sure you knew Coach Newton. And these are what I based my basketball on. Gene Bartow at Memphis. He was here 4 years. Now there's Elvis. Now there's John Morant and Gene Bartow. I think those are the 3 most popular Memphians. Now, not to diminish the importance of Frederick W. Smith of FedEx, or Pitt Hyatt of AutoZone, but Coach, I think the coolest thing from this is because people, they comment when you're on, they say how these coaches, as fans, we got to be careful. I hate this. I don't hate anybody. I never go to mass where the priest says, learn to hate others. Look, I respect you. I want to beat you. But I've got friends at so many different schools. You got a lot more than I do. But the coaches that I know, they typically know these other coaches, their families and all. I think that's the coolest part about this is that's why the rivalries are so damn intense.
Yeah, I think fans get emotional. They're attached to it emotionally, and when the game was going on, I didn't like the other coach and his team. I was trying to beat them, but it wasn't a favorite thing of mine to play one of my really good friends, whether it was Kermit Davis or Tim Floyd or any of these guys that I'm really good friends with. I didn't really like playing those guys, although I did from time to time. But I would much rather play against a coach I didn't know as well. Then I don't feel as uncomfortable if we happen to win the game. But certainly, I know how difficult it's like where I sit now with the LSU radio and analyze what we're trying to do as a basketball team. The two coaches that have done this with is Will Wade and Matt McMahon. And my whole idea is I'm there in a support situation to help them get the message out they want to get out.
Yeah.
I've sat in that chair they're in. I know how difficult it can be and how you can feel isolated from time to time if you're not careful. So I don't need to coach the team. I've done that before. I've been there. I've served my time there. I'm trying to help them do the best they can to make it successful, because that's a difficult seat at any high major program that you sit in as the head coach. And you certainly don't need somebody watching you every day that's being critical.
Coach, hold that thought. Yeah, hold that thought. We're going to come back just a few more minutes and be right back with Coach John Brady. Great take after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
John Brady is with us right now, and Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. And Coach, I like what you just said. You've had a chance to be there as the color analyst on the LSU basketball radio network, and you've been in that seat that that Will Wade was in when he was coaching at LSU, and Matt McMahon. And that's really cool. It's like when I watch, and listen to Sonny Smith. It's funny. Every game, the coaches after the game are over there talking with him. And with that picture of you last year with Winifred E. Wimp Sanderson, a native of Florence, Alabama. My friend Rich Gray's dad and him grew up together, and Dale Browne. That was a great picture. How many people can say he had a picture with the man from Minot, North Dakota, Dale Browne, Wimp Sanderson, and Coach John Brady? That is impressive, and I love it.
All three small town guys, Florence, Alabama, Minot, North Dakota, and Macomb, Mississippi. I mean, you can't get much smaller town than those three.
Yeah. Well, you could come to Parkin, Arkansas, population 1,107, I think, counting all the deer and the turkeys. But hey, Yancy, I was just telling Coach Brady, absolutely loved that segment on the Rebel Yell Hotline Monday. I was listening to it over here at the farm. with you and Chuck Rounsville and Gary Darby and with Coach Brady. And I just think I'm as an observer, this hire of Chris Beard is it's a great hire, and Coach knows him. And what's it been like since he's been there? Have y'all seen him? I'm sure he's out recruiting. I guarantee you he ain't sitting in his office.
Well, I think everybody's seen him in town. From what I hear, he's a lot like AK. I have not met him yet. Unfortunately, I've got this crud, so I hadn't been out on town. But he's shook a lot of hands around town. Everybody just loves him. So I tell Chuck before we get on the show, I said, "Hey, we got Coach Brady coming on. Do you know Coach Brady by any chance?" He goes, "Yeah, I just got through talking to him Monday." That afternoon, I was like, "Oh," he's like, "Yeah, man, that's one of my good friends." So Coach Brady, Chuck loves you, by the way. Everybody does that I talk to, but yeah, Coach Beard. I did get a chance to see Keith Carter at both our kids play for Oxford High baseball, and I talked to him yesterday, and he's really, really excited, about the Beard High, and he's excited about the women's basketball program. They got a chance to go to the Final Four this weekend, and they haven't had that chance since 2007. So basketball is on the rise at Ole Miss.
Yeah, Coach, you're a Mississippian from Macomb, and God, there's a lot of athletes in a state with less than 3 million people. You got back-to-back national champions. You've got basketball, football. You got it all. I've been to a lot of games over the years at the Tad Pad and now at the Pavilion. They're right on top of you. Chris Beard, kind of talk to people that maybe aren't as familiar with him. He didn't just start coaching, last couple of years. He's been doing this a while, kind of a grassroots effort, isn't it?
Well, he's worked for some really good people, and he's learned, and he's kept what he likes and discarded some things that doesn't fit his personality. But certainly from a basketball standpoint, I tried to get LSU to hire him when he was at Texas Tech when Will Wade came here. Nothing against Will Wade, I just didn't know Will Wade.
Yeah,
and I was thinking that's somebody they ought to look at to come to LSU, but that's water under the bridge. But I got to know Chris really when he was at UALR and I was at Arkansas State. And the 1 year he was at UALR, I told him after the success he had at Little Rock, he took the job at Vegas. And then a month later, he takes the Texas Tech job. And he may be one of the few guys in America that's had 2 high major jobs within 6 weeks of one another. So that's hard to do. I think you need to be thankful for that. Some guys don't get 1 job. You got 2 in a month. So and then he has success. But the thing I like about Chris Beard is he's going to coach them and challenge them, but he's got a knack where players like playing for him. And I think that's the key in today's world. You can be challenging as a head coach, but if you have that little extra something about you that players know you really care and you have their best interest at heart and you're trying to improve their value as a player to get them to the next level, and they enjoy playing for you, that's a trait that a lot of guys today don't have, and I think he's got it. And I'm sure the other part of his personal life that Ole Miss vented and the AD, the chancellor, whoever, and I think Chris Beard will approach that job that he has a chance for redemption and to really show what he's about. And I think he's going to really embrace this situation and make it real special for Ole Miss and their fan base.
Yeah, Yancy, you've covered Ole Miss for a long time, and wow,
Too long.
Yeah, Chris Beard at LSU. Wow, that would have been wild. But you got him at Ole Miss, and you got Lane Kiffin, Mike Bianco, national champion, defending coach in baseball.
LSU guy, by the way.
Yeah. But Yancy, it's a lot going on down there, man. I think what's it been like, in Oxford? Chris Beard, he's the kind of guy that wants to be around people. And yeah, you're going to work somebody. The best people I've ever been around in my life, when I look back, were the people that absolutely put a foot up my ass and said, I'm not letting you quit. There's too much there. You think about people that have impacted you, Coach, or Yancy. That's what it seems like Chris Beard is. His personality at that press conference, he was emotional. He was about to pop out of his suit, man. And he looked over at his players, and he knows what it's going to take. But if they all buy in, there are no ceilings, are there?
Yeah, man, I'll give you an example of, the excitement around just Ole Miss. We have 64 slots for the Rebel Yell hotline for sponsorships around Mississippi, and now we have a waiting list to get on the show. So that's what it's done. I've never dreamed it would come down to that. Even the Mississippi Gulf Coast is filled up. So we got 4 sponsors even down on the coast within 48 hours of Chris Beard's hiring. So that's what it does. Just for the radio show alone, you can imagine what it's going to do for ticket sales and for alumni giving to the programs and to the NIL funds and everything else. It's a good time to be a Rebel.
Yeah. And Coach, when you come in, he looked at his players and he said, he's going to talk to all of them. I like those coaches that say, these are my players. I'm not going to say when I get my guys in here. That's the right way to do it. But, there might be some changes, but it's not like the cupboard is bare over there with talent. You've seen them play this year. Kermit, he recruited talent, good kids, not getting in trouble and all. Where do you start?
Well, you start with what you have, and you evaluate those, and you hopefully the ones that you won't stay. And I think with Chris Beard, they will do that, the majority of them. There's always be somebody that wants to leave. The young man from Jackson that Kermit had signed, it looks like he's going elsewhere. But I think if he can keep the core of what's coming back, and then what he's going to add with his reputation, his personality, and the assistants that he's going to hire, I don't think it's going to be any kind of downward turn. I think it's going to be just a good solid base and go up from there. So, I just think it's a good hire. I think it's a exciting hire, with the fan base, and I think they're going to be one of the best coached teams in the SEC in a short period of time.
Yeah, Yancy, jump in.
Yeah, Ben, I agree. Look, Kermit, he was recruiting at extremely high level. The 2 highest ranked classes that Ole Miss ever had were the 2022 class and the 2020 the 2 and 3 classes. So they're really good at the 1 through 3. What they've got to get is Beard has got to get some 4s and 5s. And so he's got to get the big man. He got 2 power forwards in the 2023 class, signees that decided to stay, as Coach Brady just alluded to, the point guard that had signed with Ole Miss, flipped to Mississippi State. But they've got 6 returnees that are really, really good ball players, and they got the 2 signees that are top 100 recruits. And then, you fill out the next 4 or 5 with some portal guys, and I'm sure they're going to be heavy on the 4s and 5s, and particularly the 5s. I would imagine he's going to get 2 to 3 bigs at minimum, and they'll be good to go. This is not going to be a rebuild job. It's kind of a unique situation here at Ole Miss, because normally when a coach does poor, it's due because you got a lack of talent all over. But that's not the case here at Ole Miss. With what Kermit has left him, if he can get some bigs, they'll be ready to rock and roll next season.
Yeah, I agree. They need a rim protector.
Yeah.
A guy who can score on the post occasionally, because nobody really scores off the post a lot in this day and age. They score by driving the ball, but if get a rim protector and a rim defender and a shot blocker a little bit, I think that team, could have a chance to really, really surprise some people.
Yep, and one more shooter, Coach. They need one more consistent outside shooter. That's been a problem. That's really what really set Kermit back, was just having somebody. I mean, it wasn't the offense. They run similar offenses, the half court, motion offense. You saw time after time after time guys wide open, creating open shots for the offense, but they just couldn't knock down the shot. So I think getting another shooter and getting, like you said, a rim protector or two, and he'll be really set for next season.
Yeah, I agree.
Coach, when you go out there and like what Chris Beard's going to do, he's going to go obviously get every player he can in state, but Memphis is, an hour away. There's a lot of talent there. You got Penny Hardaway there, go to Arkansas, everywhere around him. Everybody's starting to really emphasize basketball, but free throw shooting, that's something that you can control. If you had to guess a swag, which is a scientific wild ass guess, what percentage of players do you think really spend enough time to improve free throw shooting? Because, man, it can really bite you if you don't.
Well, I think you spend time shooting free throws, and I always shot free throws with a penalty to be paid if you didn't make a certain amount or percentage throughout the practice or at the end of practice. There was a penalty to be paid in some way, shape, or form. So we always charted those type of things because I think the more you can put it on the players to perform and hold them to a certain standard, and at the end of the day, you not punish them, but you hold them accountable for either meeting that standard or not, and they've got to pay a price for that. And I think it builds an edge in your team that is going to need to win close games. So that's how I dealt with that. But it's like, to me, shooters are like length. You don't coach length. You don't really coach shooters. You recruit those two. You recruit shooters. You recruit length. You don't coach it. So I think that's what you look for when you see a young man to fill a particular need on your team. I never did invent great shooters. I may have helped a guy a little bit. I never did increase a guy's length. He had that when he came because we recruited that. So I think those are two areas that you recruit and you don't coach.
Yeah. Coach, first of all, Rob is talking about free throws because he's still a little perturbed about his Auburn Tigers going 1 for 2 down the stretch there in the NCAA game, which cost him the game basically when, what was it, Rob? They went 7 for 14 in the last 3 minutes of the ball game that basically lost the game for Auburn. But, the length is a good point, and that was another concern of mine is that you already had one guy on Ole Miss's team, 5'8", and then you just recruited the other one that we just talked about that flipped to Mississippi State here, that it was also 5'8", and that was going to be a major concern of mine. You get two guys 5'8", that now it's hard to scheme around one defensively, but you get two and you could start getting in trouble. So I think maybe it worked out for the best from Ole Miss's perspective, not to get two guys 5'8" there in that guard rotation.
Yeah, well, Chris Beard's going to get on the high side defensively. They're going to be up in passing lanes. They're going to put a lot of pressure on people. And one thing that can really be conducive to that type of guarding is to have length in the perimeter, because you can get your hands on balls that some guy 5'8" or 5'9" probably can't do. So that may be a direction that he goes when he starts really putting this team together.
Yeah, I would imagine. I went back through the guards, the point guards particularly, that he's recruited and signed and played there during his previous stops at Texas and Texas Tech and Little Rock. And those point guards are all 6'3", 6'4". So I would imagine he's going to do the same thing. There's one particular freshman guard that's rumored that could be coming to Ole Miss at 6'3". He was in the 2022 class. Didn't have a lot of success there at Texas his freshman year, but he was the number one point guard in the country. So it would be interesting to see if he ends up coming to Ole Miss. But I'm with you. I think he's going to go, with Ruffin being in the 5'8" side. I think he's going to go with a taller point guard in the 6'3", 6'4". And, they played Abram and Caldwell, who were in that mold, that 6'3", 6'4". Actually, Caldwell's even 6'5", but I don't think they're true point guards. I think they're more off guards and shooting guards. So I look for him to try to add some length to that point guard rotation without question. And like you said, they've got to get, a couple length guys down low there at power forward and center. I don't think you can really bank on two true freshmen coming in there at the power forward spot and lean on your offense and defense through them. You want to kind of develop them as the season goes along. So I think really he's going to look for a shooter, a point guard, and a couple bigs that have got some experience through the portal.
Well, unless you get a couple of freshmen like Alabama has. You know,
Well,
those
yeah.
guys
But those are not going to be available in the spring. I tell you that. Yeah, those guys are unbelievable. And look, and we saw LSU getting them too with Brady over there, and those, you know, in Auburn, you know, they had a couple there. What was it, Jabari Smith, Rob?
And Walker Kessler.
You know, those guys are not available usually in the spring. Yeah. I don't think that'd be realistic.
Well, we got about 30 seconds left, and I just want to say, Coach Brady, thank you so much for staying on extra time with us. And Yancy, as always, Rebel Yell Hotline, Monday nights, 6 p.m. Sports 56 WHBQ, and Super Talk, as we say up here in the Delta, Mississippi. It's not Mississippi, it's Mississippi.
That's right.
That's the way, the SIP, as they call it.
Just
and
like I'm from Hattiesburg, but we say Hattiesburg with the D.
Hattiesburg. And Macomb, Mississippi. Hey, but Coach, you bring so much credibility every time you're on. We thank you. I want to get you on SEC Network. We need a coach. I want Coach John Brady start a populist campaign.
Yeah, that should. That really should.
Yeah, say thank you. And most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. And every day, do the Superman pose, look in the mirror and say, I got this. I'm going to win. I'm going to be successful. And we got it. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have a great day. We are out of here.
Thanks, guys. All right.